This is practical number 4. In this practical, we will perform identification of concentrates. We define concentrate, the feedstuff which contain high amount of something. So that's why they are called concentrate. So there are two type of concentrates. One energy concentrate and second one protein concentrate.
So concentrate, they are opposite of roughages. Concentrate contain more than 60% total digestible nutrients and less than 18% crude fiber. Concentrates are of two types. One are known as energy concentrate, which are rich in energy, while the second are protein concentrates. So we will start with energy concentrates. So under this, we have the example of cereal grains or other seeds, not the oil seeds. These are simply the cereal grains and seeds. Uh, Examples are rice, wheat, barley, oat, maize. Second, under this energy feeds, they are the mill byproducts. Mill byproducts are usually obtained during the milling of grain. Here I quote the example of wheat. When we separate grain from the wheat, we get under through threshing process, we get wheat straw. But when we do milling of the grain, like when we make flour out of wheat grain, we get a component that is known as wheat bran. Similarly, from rice, we get rice bran and rice polish, then wheat middling. From the sugarcane industry, we get molasses. Uh, these items will be discussed in detail under individual type of mill byproducts. The third under this is fat and oils. Fat and oils, they are commonly used in animal diet to increase the energy content of the diet. The reason being, fat contain more energy as compared to carbohydrate. It contains 9 calories as compared to 4 calories. So 2.25 times more energy is available from fat as compared to the grains or starch, carbohydrates, you can say. Next is the root crops, particularly if we use potato, turnip, sugar beet, or other tubers. So these are the roots, and those can be used as a source of energy feed. Similarly, we can use bakery waste. Brewer's grains, they are not commonly available in Pakistan, but such grains like from Murray Brewery was making this malt liquid, Abe Jo, commonly known as. So the residue which we get after the production of that, that is known as brewer's grains. Brewer's grains, in simple term, you can say that this is the product which obtained after the fermentation of the grain. Similarly, from biofuel industry, we get distiller grains that are also a good source of energy as well as protein. Here we have the example of grain, how grains look like. If you see over here, this is an example of corn seed. The outer covering of corn is known as hull. This is basically the material which covers the whole grain. If you look at a wheat grain, which is present in within the spikes, so if we remove that material, that is known as hull or husk. This is basically the outer covering. In case of rice, you see the rice grain is enveloped in a fibrous type material, and during the shelling process, we get the rice grain separated from that stuff. Uh, in local language, we say it's a prali. So that prali or that stuff is, or in some areas they say it's a phak. So that's basically the outer covering of the seed. So in case of rice, it is known as rice hulls or rice husk. So when we have the grain, so this is the grain. The outermost layer of the grain is known as bran. If you look at the wheat grain, like this one, so there is a outer covering. So when we get it grinded and we sieve the flour, the material which is left over the sieve, so that material is known as bran. In local language, it is known as chanbura. So that is the bran portion. So bran is high in protein and fiber. Similarly, corn and rice, both have their outer covering that is known as bran. Then the inside of the grain is known as endosperm, so that is rich in starch, and whereas the area which is known as germ, it is rich in fat and protein. Almost all the seed, they have the same type of structure. Like in case of wheat, there is a germ, there is endosperm, then there is a outer covering that is known as a bran, and this one is a hull or husk. Similar is the case with the rice grain. So brief about these high energy feedstuff. These are called energy concentrate, and they are used as a basic feed or the major component of poultry as well as ruminant diet. If we look at the composition of poultry diet, so it contains more than 40%, and it can go up to 60% that consist of cereal grains and grain byproducts or mill byproducts. So these stuff, they're high in energy, and their protein contents, they are less than 18%. So due to the presence of high amount of starch, so they are energy dense. And if the outer covering hull is not mixed with the grain, so they are low in fiber content and protein. The available energy on per unit dry matter basis is high. Here, there's the term of digestible energy, metabolizable energy, and net energy. Digestible energy is the amount of energy which remain in the body after digestion. Like if we uh, minus or subtract the material in the excreta, like energy intake minus energy appeared in the feces. The difference between these two values will give us a value of digestible energy. Then the term is metabolizable energy. This digestible energy is taken up by the individual and it gets metabolized. So there are some losses of energy. Those losses in case of ruminant animals, they occur in the gaseous form, and in monogastric species there is only loss in the urine. So if we subtract urinary energy loss and gaseous loss from the digestible energy, we get the value of metabolizable energy. The last one is the net energy. Net energy is the amount of energy which is available for body function. Uh, During the metabolic processes, further when the energy is utilized, there is a loss of energy in the form of heat or rise in body temperature. So if we subtract that value, we get a value of net energy. So these energy feedstuff, they are high in net energy, metabolizable energy, or digestible energy components as compared to majority of the proteinous feedstuff. They are low in calcium, but they are a fair source of phosphorus. Phosphorus is present in most of the cereal grains, but that phosphorus is not available due to the lack of phytase enzyme, because the phosphorus is bind with the phytic acid. They are low source of vitamin D and A, except the yellow corn, and they are high in thiamine and niacin. But you can say different grains, they have a variable proportion. So in general, they contain some of the vitamins, but not in a very sufficient amount. Then about the general characteristics of cereal grains, they are the carbohydrate feed. Major component of the grain is starch. Their dry matter contents, they are between 82 to 90%, and their moisture content is very low. Usually we purchase grain for animal feeding which contain less than 15% moisture. Protein contents, they are variable in different cereal grains. They are between 8 to 12%. In majority of the cereal grains, their protein content is I'm talking about the true protein. True protein mean the protein which is coming from the amino acids. Ruminant animals, they have the ability to make protein within the body by using ammonia. But here I'm talking about the true protein, that the protein which is coming from the amino acid. So if we talk about 12% protein, crude protein, this is the total protein you can say that is present in a stuff. Out of that, 90% is the true protein in cereal grains. Then about the amino acid, though they are not good source of protein, and they are also deficient in two major amino acids, lysine and methionine. Lysine and methionine, these are known as limiting amino acids. Limiting means those amino acids which are most deficient in the diet with respect to the monogastric or ruminant requirement. So generally lysine and methionine, they are required by every species. So these two amino acids are deficient. when we look or when we compare it with the nutrient requirement of the individual. So that's why they are known as limiting amino acids. The oil content varied between 2 to 5%. Fat is present normally in the germ, and starch is present in the endosperm. Fat in almost all of the plant sources, the fat is normally unsaturated fat. Fiber is present in the hull or husk or bran, that's the outer covering hull or husk. Oat or barley, we say it's a hull, whereas in case of rice, we say it's a rice husk. Bran, I said that's the outermost layer of the grain, that's the pericarp, you can say in technical terms, so that is a bran. Oat is usually low in energy than maize, the reason being due to the presence of this husk on the oat, and it could be difficult to separate that husk. Already discussed that they are deficient in calcium, and phosphorus is present, but that is in the form of bound phosphorus that is bind with the phytic acid, so it makes a phytate phosphorus. Vitamin E content, they're good, and they're low in vitamin D, and thiamine is good, and vitamin D2 is not good. So next comes the first most important grain, corn grain or maize grain in some countries. Its name is the local name is maize. Technical name is Zea maize. So it's a C4 plant, whereas as compared to C3 plant, C3 plant are mostly the plants which are in a cold region. So C4 plants are in the pathway, in the photosynthetic pathway they use, and they are in the tropical countries. Corn, different varieties they are available. Hybrid corn is available, and they are high in energy content variable, but that's a very good or high source of energy. And out of that, energy is highly digestible. Grain are quite highly palatable, not quite highly palatable. And the most important factor, there is no deleterious or intrinsic toxic factor present in the corn. Now you can eat as much as you can, particularly in case of monogastric species, without any hazard. And large quantities of high quality crop residue are also obtained from the corn. Okay, when we do separate the grain, we get a corn cob, we also get a corn stovers, that's the covering of the corn. So different types, they are available in the market, but mostly in Pakistan, the dent variety is available, that is primarily prepared for feed use, and sweet corn is for human use. Other are flint, flour, popcorn, you know very well, waxy and pound. So these are the different types which are available, but from animal feeding point of view, the dent is the common one. Whole seed of corn or other grain is known as kernel, and embryo within that seed is known as embryo, and germ or embryo, it contains oil, endosperm contains starch. The outer layer of the endosperm is known as aileron layer, so that mainly composed of the protein. There are different types of or colors of corn. The yellow and white, they are more popular or available in Pakistan. So the yellow or sometimes orange type of corn, that contain a pigment. That pigment is known as carotene or xanthophyll pigment. So this pigment basically gives it a yellow color. So if we want to give more color to the egg yolk or to the bird skin, if we feed more corn, then we will get more colored yolk. This is the reason why desi birds, they are having more darker yolk, or reason being they are fed on green material, so they contain chlorophyll, and some xanthophyll are also present in the green or vegetative material. So that's why their yolk is more darker. Similarly, white, red, purple, or black corn, they are available in different countries. In case of maize or corn, their starch is about 65%, and out of that, 75% is in the form of amylopectin. So for better utilization, we do grinding of the grain, either we want to feed to the ruminant or poultry. The oil mostly unsaturated, and it contains a very essential fatty acid. That's why corn oil is considered as is a very of good quality for human health point of view. But there is only 3 to 4% oil is present in the corn. So if we feed oil or corn rich in oil, so that gives a very glossier or sleeker appearance to the body coat or hair coat of the animal. Protein in case of grain, it's a zein or prolamine, and that is not of a good quality protein. The reason being it is deficient in lysine and tryptophan. And 55 to 75% of protein of the corn is in the form of prolamine, which is a zein, also known as zein protein. So this protein is deficient in lysine and tryptophan and methionine. These are the amino acids. There are some varieties which contain high amount of lysine and they have a hard endosperm that is opaque too. And flory too is a variety which has a very fine textured starch, and it gives a very good quality flour. Can be used for bread making. There is another issue with the grain. Okay, if we are unable to store the grain properly, there is a Maillard reaction. So that causes a poor lysine availability uh, due to the heat. If you remember, sometimes there are the news that the grain storage they get fired without any external evidences of fire. So that, yes, chances are there due to rancidity, due to high moisture and high temperature, the material get oxidized. Uh, and if oil is there, that also increases the chances of fire hazard. So during that situation, the fire broke out. So that is due to the rancidity or oxidation of the stuff. So this happen in many godowns which have a poor aeration or poor ventilation system. And if there is no fire, but if you go deeper into the heap of grain, so you will see a very high temperature. So that high temperature causes a reaction of this lysine with the carbohydrate and making this lysine unavailable. But if we talk about the vitamins, so there is a beta carotene in the yellow corn particularly, so it's a good source of vitamin A, but generally it's not a good source of other vitamins. Low in calcium, and also I mentioned phosphorus is the 0.3%, but that phosphorus bind with the phytic acid, and that 6-phosphorus molecule bind with single phytic acid and making this phosphorus unavailable. So that is known as phytate phosphorus and non-available phosphorus. So if we add the hull or bran portion in the stuff, so that decreases the metabolizable energy and also the bulk density. Bulk density is a term which is used to calculate the storage capacity. Okay, in how much area uh, or how much space can accommodate 1 kg of grain. Because the lighter grain will require more space even if they are of 1 kg as compared to the grain which are dense. So that's why the bulk density we use this term. So for proper storage and to avoid this Maillard reaction, the moisture content of grain they should be less than 15%. So that will avoid caramelization of the corn. I have mentioned they get heated and they also reduces the chances of Maillard reaction. The second is when moisture is high, the chances of mycotoxin contamination are there. We have to store grain for a long time. So aflatoxin and zearalenone, these are the toxins. So if we keep the moisture content below than 15% and temperature less than 20%, so we can store for a long time. Otherwise, if the moisture is more than 15 and temperature is greater than 20, the chances of such problems are there. So this is the Maillard reaction. You can see it from any book source. The second grain is wheat, also known as triticum is the genus. So you can see the grain, and here you can see the damaged grain by insect damage. You can see the hole in the grain. So when we are going to procure grain, we should keep in mind the quality of the grain and also ensure quality during the storage of the grain. This is a winter or spring type of wheat. It's again the kernel or seed color is white, umber, or red. Similarly, the texture, different texture, hard, soft. They are available. Hard is mostly for bread making, whereas the soft is used for making cookies or cakes. Club wheat is also there. Then hard or pasta making require this durium, triticum durium wheat. Its protein content there again up to 12% in local type of, but if we look at the wheat which is available internationally, it can go up to 14%, and hard they are up to 11%. Mostly used for human consumption in Pakistan. Use of wheat in animal diet is banned. That has been banned by the government. But when it is available in excess, then yes, we can use wheat as a feed. In some countries, they have a purple color gene, so that the wheat sown for animal consumption, they have a different color, that's a purple color. So protein and energy content, they are variable. I have given a table at the end of this presentation. So you can check the protein and energy content for our local wheat varieties, that is around 3000 kilocalories. So different varieties, agronomic condition, temperature, fertilization, they all affect, even the type of bird, they also affect the availability of the energy from the wheat. So its energy or nutritionist value is almost equal to corn as a source of energy. But when we feed high amount of wheat to the animal, they can cause digestive disturbance. If you remember during Eid days, the people, they used to feed high amount of wheat to the animals because it is available at a low cost. So when they drink water and there is a fermentation, so there is a production of high amount of acid that causes lactic acidosis. It is lower in essential fatty acid protein content. Variable lysine is also limiting amino acid, followed by threonine and methionine, almost similar to that of the corn. Though in biotin, again, there is no significant toxic factor available in the wheat, except if we take care of the feeding practices, then we can avoid this issue. The second problem with the feeding of grain, when we add this wheat more than 30% of the diet of the monogastric, then due to the presence of these pentosans, these are the uh, polysaccharides which are present in the wheat. They are the arabinos and xylose. So due to the lack of arabinoxylase or xylanase enzyme in monogastric, particularly the bird, that cause this problem. So this is similar to the situation if we eat raw flour, without making bread or cooking that flour. If we use that, if we eat that flour as such, so that creates the problem. Due to the presence of these pentosans and lack of and arabinase and xylanase, particularly enzyme, the situation happened. I mentioned this is similar situation if we eat flour as such, so that will increase the water intake by the bird, and it increases the viscosity, because by absorbing water, these pentosans, they swell up, and that reduces the viscosity. The material stay in the gut, that decreases the digestibility, and it make a thick layer over the intestinal mucosa, do not allow enzyme to digest the stuff. So material stay over there and cause the digestive disturbance. And if the material is voided in the feces or droppings of the bird, so they cause a wet manure, and sometimes beak infection, because the flour, when we mix it with the water, so it becomes a sticky type material, so it causes beak infection or bent pasty. uh, it can be used safely if the level is less than 20%. But if we want to go beyond 20%, then we should go for making pellet. Pellet is a process where starch gets gelatinized. If you see a poultry feed that is available in a form of small cubes, so that's are the pellet feed. So by making pellet, we can resolve this issue. Phosphorus availability, again, due to the presence of phytate, it is less than 50%. It is low in xanthophyll, biotin, and can be used for making good pellets. So wheat byproduct during the milling, when there is a flour milling of the grain, so there are the wheat screening. These are the short grains. When they do sieving of the grain, the small or cracked grain, they get separated, and the stuff is used in animal feeding. They are known as wheat screening. Screening, we can say this is a grain passed through the sieve. Wheat bran, outer covering of the grain. So local language, it's a chanbura. Okay, when we do sieving of the flour, we get this bran portion. Wheat short, again, the short type or the broken grain. If you look at the feed stuff available in the market, so these are the stuff which are commonly known as mumni. It's a combination of different type of such material, wheat short, wheat milling. So that can be used in animal.
Next grain is rice, technical name is Oryza sativa. Pakistan have a large number of varieties that have very good characteristics and are used as human consumption. The white rice is a common rice available in Pakistan, like the kernel rice or basmati rice. The varieties they have been exported to a number of countries in the world. The majority of the rice grown in Pakistan is used as a food item. Sela rice or brown rice, and that is available even for human consumption. This white rice is commonly used for human consumption, but the rice that have been broken down during the processing process, that is known as nakku or broken rice. So that rice is used as a food. That rice is used as a food item for human consumption, but at the same time, a poor quality such broken rice is used in poultry diet. So it's a food grain mostly in Asia and the tropic countries. Broken rice is used in poultry feed, and that rough rice has 8% crude protein contents. Unprocessed grain contain 25% of its weight as hulls. Hulls is the outer covering of the seed. Locally, it is known as phak. Hull contains silica and it is indigestible, so it is not used as a feed item. Rather, this has been used as a bedding material in the poultry houses. There are three types of rice. One is rough rice or paddy rice, second is broken rice, and last one is the brown rice or cargo rice. Rice is mostly grown for human consumption. If that is not fit for human consumption, like the broken rice, that can be used in animal feeding. Average quality of rice is about 8% crude protein and 2700 kilocalories of metabolizable energy for poultry. Like wheat, the outer most layer of the seed is known as bran. So rice bran is available and it can be used in animal feeding. The second product which is available from rice milling, that's a rice polish. So this is the stuff which is in between rice grain and rice hulls. So during the separation of grain from the hull, rice shelling process, we get this rice polish. This is a powdery type material and it contains high amount of protein and ether extract. So that increases its energy value. Its protein is 11% and fat contents or ether extract there 12.5%. So it is a good source of energy, though its fiber content it is high. The major problem with this rice polish is the rancidity if it is not properly stored. So the high amount of fat might undergo oxidation. So rancidity might occur if rice polish have not been properly stored by the manufacturer or by the feed miller. Barley, Hordeum vulgare. Its grain is of small size, but that is of little bit thick in the middle when we compare it with the oat. Barley local name is Joe. Barley grain is palatable, but due to the presence of husk or hull, its fiber content go up to 7%. It can be used in horse feeding, young and breeding stock rations. So due to the presence of its hull, it increases the bulk of the ration. So we can use such type of feed stuff when we want to restrict the energy intake without being affecting the overall total consumption of the diet. For monogastric feeding and particularly for poultry feeding, steam rolling or coarsely grounding of the grain is recommended. Its protein content are between 8 to 12% like other cereal grains. The most important problem with this grain is the presence of beta glucans. Again, the non-starch polysaccharides, they are up to 7%. So like wheat, these non-starch polysaccharides increases the viscosity and reduces the digestibility of the diet. Though due to the presence of its fiber, it is helpful in reducing the blood cholesterol content. So if we want to use this grain and to get a maximum out of its nutritional value, particularly the energy, if we add beta glucanase enzyme, so that will improve its nutrient availability, particularly the energy equivalent to that of wheat, and we can safely use in young birds. There is also an other anti-nutritional factor, trypsin inhibitor is present in barley, so that might create the issue. Oat or Avena sativa. Oat is locally known as jai, whereas the local name of barley was jaw. So when we compare it with barley, so the seed of oat is of large size. It is large in length as compared to the oat, and it is slim in from the center as compared to the barley grain. So oat or jai, its production is very less if we compare it with the other grains. It is only 1.5% of the total cereal production. The major problem with oat is the presence of hull, and that is 20% of the grain. So that's why its fiber contents they are more than that of wheat, and they are between 10 to 18% depending upon the amount of hull. Its TDN value is low, only 71%, and like barley, steam rolling or grinding is required before feeding. The problem is similar to that of barley. It contains beta-glucan between 3 to 7%. So beta-glucanase enzyme is required if we want to feed this oat grain to improve its nutritional value. A naked oat variety is available that is without hull. So this naked oat is similar to that of oat groats. Oat groats are the oat where hull has been removed. So oat groat simply means the grain without the hull. Naked oat is a type of variety, so its protein content is 17%, and that's a good source of energy and other amino acids. Oat groats where the hull has been removed, and they are very suitable for poultry feeding, and their beta glucan contents they are between 3 to 7%. So by the addition of beta glucanase enzyme we can use it safely. Naked oat, its composition is similar to that of oat groat. Protein content they are 17%. Again, the issue is the presence of beta glucans. Like other grains, the phosphorus is there, but their availability is poor. So here are the spikes. You can see the difference between oat, barley, wheat, and rye. The first one A is the oat. Here you can see that's a long grain with slendery appearance, whereas the barley has a small seed, but that's a thick. And when we compare it with the bread wheat, that has little bit long and uh, very little thick grain, whereas in case of rye, that stalk and spike is similar, but they have a very small size grain. Next is sorghum. Sorghum vulgare. Locally it is known as cherry. It is also known as milo or kaffir corn. So its nutritional value is similar to that of corn. About 95% is similar in nutritive value when we compare it with the maize or corn. Protein content 9% and metabolizable energy is 3200 plus kilocalories. So this is a very good alternative feedstuff to the corn. But the main problem with the sorghum is the presence of an anti-nutritional factor that is known as tannin. Tannin combined with the protein and making protein unavailable for digestion. So from the color of the seed, we can guess about the amount of tannin. The darker seed contain more tannin, mostly the condensed tannin is present in case of sorghum. So if we have a darker seed, it means the tannin contents are more. So due to the unavailability of protein and other nutrients which bind with the tannin, that increases the incidence of leg problem in poultry birds. This cereal grain is native to Africa, and here you can see different type of varieties. There are the grain sorghum, which include milo, and sweet sorghum that is used as animal food. Then Sudan grass is also a type of sorghum, but it is a different, and though it's related to this. Then there is a broom corn. So these are the four main types based primarily on how that stuff has been used. So here is the inflorescence of sorghum. You can see the flower and seed, particularly the grains on this fluorescent side. So milo or caffeine corn, we can reduce its tannin content by a different treatment that have been given over here. So depending upon the availability, any such treatment can be used to reduce the tannin content. Otherwise, for feeding monogastric species, we have to reduce the total amount of grain given to the animal, so that we can restrict the intake of the tannin rather than going for such treatment, because treatment process increases the cost of the ingredient. Next, millet, or locally known as bajra. So its feeding value is similar to that of the sorghum. Protein contents are between 10, but again, the tannin contents in bajra, they are quite high. In Pakistan, that is mostly produced for human consumption, or that is used for even bird feeding. Its production is low, and that's why it is not commonly being used in the industry. Next is a rye. Rye is nutritive value similar to that of wheat or corn. It also contains pectin-like substances, arabinoxylans, like in case of wheat. So water insoluble anti-nutritional factors, they are present in the rye. So that's why its feeding value is not of that good as we say in case of wheat or corn. Because due to the presence of these anti-nutritional factors, we have to reduce, or we have to restrict the total amount of rye to be given in the ration. Triticale. Triticale is a cross between wheat and rye. So triticale is grown where corn cannot be grown due to the soil or climatic factors. So its starch is as digestible as wheat without any problem, and protein contents are highly variable, 11 to 20%. Their amino acid balance is also comparable to that of wheat, and again phosphorus is present, but in a phytate phosphorus. So due to the presence of a significant phytase enzyme activity in triticale, so that phosphorus become available. Here are the difference between bread wheat, rye, and triticale. A1 is the bread wheat, B1 is the rye. So the cross between wheat and rye, A and B, will give us a triticale. So wheat and rye are there crossed together to produce this hybrid triticale. So overall, we get more productivity from triticale. So this is a chart of energy concentrates: cereal grain, wheat, rice, sorghum, rice polish, wheat bran, and molasses. Molasses we have not discussed in detail. This is simply a product which is available from sugarcane industry. So its energy contents, they are quite high, because in Pakistan sugarcane industry is producing a lot of molasses. That's why it is commonly available, and available at a very low price. So it can be used as a liquid component in the poultry diet, that help in binding the finer particles. So it can also act as a binder. Here you can see the protein, crude protein, metabolizable energy for poultry, crude fiber, lysine, methionine plus cysteine, available phosphorus, calcium, and ash content of these feeds, energy feedstuffs. So you can use this table for poultry feed formulation, and same can be used for ruminant except for the energy value.